Every year, farmers spray hundreds of millions of dollars worth of herbicide on one plant. Agricultural Extension Services publish guides dedicated entirely to its eradication. Gardening forums light up with threads titled, "How do I get rid of this thing for good?" And that plant is one of the most nutritionally dense foods that has ever grown from the earth. And hello everyone, I'm a nutritionist and phytotherapist. And what I just described is Purslane, Portulaca oleracea, semizotu, the fleshy little ground hugger with the reddish stems that you probably pulled out of your garden last summer and threw in the bin. The one that grows in sidewalk cracks, between pavement stones, in the corners of neglected flower beds. Here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. We are living in an era of chronic omega-3 deficiency. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in every industrialized nation. Neurological decline in people over 60 is accelerating. Systemic inflammation, the quiet fire underneath arthritis, cognitive fog, and metabolic dysfunction is at epidemic levels. And the plant that researchers have identified as the single richest land-based source of omega-3 fatty acids on the planet is being sprayed, pulled, and discarded. There's no lobby for Purslane, no pharmaceutical patent, no €40 capsule, just a weed, growing in the ditch, for free. Shall we talk about what's actually inside it? Let's start with the cardiovascular and neurological systems, because that's where this plant punches hardest, and that's where most of us over 60 are quietly paying the price. Here's the picture of aging in the modern world. Arterial walls stiffen. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which in pre-industrial diets hovered around 4:1, has blown out to somewhere between 15 and 20:1 in most Western countries. That ratio matters more than people realize. Omega-6 dominant environments push the body toward a pro-inflammatory state, chronically, every day, every meal. And modern agriculture has done almost nothing to correct it. Quite the opposite. The grain-fed meat, the refined oils, the processed foods that make up the bulk of what's available in every supermarket aisle. Meanwhile, microplastics are now documented inside human arterial plaques. Herbicide residues are measurable in urban soil and water. Chronic low-grade stress keeps cortisol elevated and suppresses the body's own anti-inflammatory pathways. This is the world the human body is trying to operate in right now. And into this world comes a small succulent weed. Ladies and gentlemen, Alpha-Linolenic Acid, ALA, the primary omega-3 fatty acid in Purslane, and the one that makes researchers do a double take when they analyze this plant for the first time. Per 100 grams of fresh Purslane leaves, studies have documented between 300 and 400 milligrams of ALA. That doesn't sound like much until you compare it to spinach, around 50 milligrams per 100 grams, or iceberg lettuce, roughly 15 times less than Purslane. Flaxseed has more in absolute terms, yes, but you eat a teaspoon of flaxseed. You eat a full salad bowl of Purslane. The per-serving comparison changes dramatically. But here's where it gets genuinely strange, in the best possible way. Researchers have also identified small amounts of EPA and DHA in Purslane, icosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid. The long-chain omega-3s that we're told can only come from fatty fish or fish oil capsules from a land plant. This is, phytochemically speaking, almost unprecedented. Terrestrial plants simply do not make EPA and DHA. Purslane appears to be an exception, and the scientific literature has noted this with considerable interest. ALA supports arterial flexibility. It works against the pro-inflammatory eicosanoids that drive vascular damage. Studies suggest it may help maintain healthier lipid profiles and reduce C-reactive protein, that inflammatory marker that, when chronically elevated, is closely associated with coronary artery disease, stroke, and sudden cardiac events.
Exactly.
Now, quercetin. If ALA is the headline, quercetin is the quiet workhorse that most people walk past without noticing. This flavonoid present in Purslane alongside its cousin camphorol is one of the most studied plant compounds in modern phytotherapy. What does it do? It inhibits histamine release. It modulates NF-κB, the master inflammatory switch that, when stuck in the on position, contributes to arthritis, inflammatory bowel conditions, and the kind of systemic inflammation that accelerates nearly every age-related disease we know of. Researchers have also found quercetin to be neuroprotective. It appears to cross the blood-brain barrier, which most plant compounds cannot do, and may support cognitive function by reducing oxidative damage to neurons. For anyone over 60, dealing with joint stiffness, brain fog, or that persistent sense of low-grade systemic inflammation, quercetin is a compound worth knowing. And here's where I go a little crazy. Because Purslane doesn't give you quercetin alone. It gives you quercetin alongside ALA, alongside glutathione, alongside beta-carotene and vitamin E, all in one plant. That's not a supplement stack, that's a salad weed. Growing in your garden for free, an absolute home run. Let me tell you about glutathione, because this is the compound that most supplement marketers would love to put in a capsule and charge you €100 for. Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. Not the most famous one, that title goes to vitamin C or beta-carotene. But the most fundamental one, it's the molecule your cells use to neutralize the most dangerous free radicals, to support liver detoxification, to protect DNA from oxidative damage. Your body makes it internally, but production declines with age, with chronic stress, with processed food diets, with medication use. Purslane contains glutathione in its fresh leaves. Directly, not a precursor, not a cofactor, the compound itself. The recommended daily intake of antioxidants, by the way, according to most official nutritional guidelines, is, frankly, a joke. These recommendations were set decades ago, based on preventing acute deficiency disease, not on what the research now shows about optimal cellular function. The gap between don't get scurvy and protect your neurons from oxidative decline is enormous, and no government body is in a hurry to bridge it. There's no lobby for that either. Here's one that surprises almost everyone when I mention it in a clinical context. Melatonin. We think of melatonin as a sleep hormone, something your pineal gland makes when the lights go down. What we don't commonly discuss is that melatonin is also one of the most potent antioxidants the body produces. And researchers have confirmed its presence in purslane leaves. Food-based melatonin, not synthetic, not from a capsule, from a plant. Beyond sleep regulation, melatonin appears to protect the brain from oxidative stress, support mitochondrial function, and may play a role in the cellular mechanisms that slow neurological aging. For adults over 60, where endogenous melatonin production often declines significantly, this is not a trivial detail. But the compound list doesn't stop there. Purslane also contains dopamine and noradrenaline. Yes, actual catecholamines. The same compounds that function as neurotransmitters in the human nervous system. Their role when consumed as plant compounds is not fully understood yet. But the neuroprotective implications are being actively studied, and the early findings are interesting. And then there are the Portulacanthins. These betalain pigments unique to the Portulaca genus exhibit strong antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity at the cellular level. They're part of the same molecular family as the beta-cyanins in beetroot, and the research on their protective effects on vascular endothelium is quietly building. What I find remarkable about betalains specifically is that they are water-soluble, which means they are absorbed quickly and distributed systemically in ways that fat-soluble antioxidants are not. They don't require a fat-rich meal to do their job. They go where the inflammation is. And in the context of the kind of vascular and cellular oxidative stress that accumulates over decades, this matters. This is not a compound you'll find in your standard multivitamin. It's not in most supplements at all. It's in a plant that grows in your garden for free, turns slightly reddish in the sun, and that most people confuse with a nuisance. Let's talk about bone density, because this is a conversation that doesn't happen enough in the omega-3 discussion, and it's directly relevant to anyone in their 60s and beyond. Purslane contains calcium and magnesium in meaningful amounts. And here's the nuance that most calcium supplement marketers don't want you to think about. Calcium supplementation without adequate magnesium often does more harm than good. Magnesium is what regulates how your body actually uses calcium, directing it into bone tissue rather than soft tissue, arterial walls, or kidney stones. Purslane gives you both, in a bioavailable form, from food, not from a chalky tablet. Additionally, researchers found that purslane consumption was associated with reduced C-reactive protein in clinical studies, that same inflammatory marker I mentioned earlier. Chronic inflammation is one of the primary drivers of bone loss in aging adults. The connection is direct. Now, Big Pharma has no interest in a plant that costs nothing. Let's be honest about that. The research on purslane is solid. It is consistent. It has been replicated across multiple institutions, on multiple continents, in multiple populations. And yet, I want you to think about the last time a doctor mentioned purslane to you. The last time it appeared in a public health campaign. The last time anyone with institutional authority pointed at this plant and said, "This matters." Silence. Because there is no ad campaign for Semazotu. No sponsored clinical trial with a pharmaceutical endpoint. No patent on something that grows in every crack of every sidewalk in the Mediterranean basin. Doctors are genuinely doing their best within an extremely underfunded, overloaded system. I want to be clear about that. But the system they operate in is not designed to tell you that something growing in your garden might support your cardiovascular health. It is designed to wait until the cardiovascular event happens, and then prescribe. And yet, here we are, paying 40 euros for a fish oil capsule of something that a plant you've been pulling out of your flower bed has been offering you for free. Think about what that actually means for a moment. The omega-3 supplement industry is worth tens of billions of dollars globally. Fish oil, krill oil, algal oil capsules, soft gels, liquid formulations. And underneath all of it, the basic biochemical need that these products are trying to address is one that a common weed has been quietly meeting for every human civilization that ever bothered to look down. That's it. Welcome to the practical part of this video. First, identification. Purslane is unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. Low-growing, succulent, with thick fleshy oval leaves and reddish or pinkish stems. It spreads flat along the ground, loves sun and heat, and appears reliably from June through early September across most of Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East. In Turkey, it's called semizotu. In Greece, glystrida. In China, where traditional medicine has used it for over 2,000 years, it goes by maqixian, horsetooth amaranth. It grows in disturbed soil, gardens, roadsides, field edges, which means harvest rule number 1, know your source. Only harvest from areas that are definitely free of pesticide application and vehicle exhaust. The taste is mildly tangy, slightly lemony, slightly mucilaginous. Pliny the Elder considered it reliable enough to recommend as medicine in the 1st century. Hippocrates documented it. Dioscorides wrote about it. The Cretan diet, one of the longest-lived dietary patterns ever studied, included it regularly. How to eat it: raw in salads. This is optimal. Heat degrades some of the omega-3 content and reduces glutathione. Toss a big handful with tomato, feta, cucumber, olive oil, and lemon. That's a Greek grandmother's recipe and a phytotherapist's prescription. Same thing, blended into a green smoothie. The flavor is mild enough that it disappears behind banana and lemon. A big handful, roughly 80 to 100 grams, is a solid daily serving. Lightly sautéed with garlic and olive oil. If you're cooking it, brief is better. 2 or 3 minutes maximum. Treat it like wilted spinach, as a yogurt dip, chopped finely and folded into plain yogurt with garlic and salt. This is a traditional Turkish preparation, and it's genuinely delicious. One thing worth mentioning, if you're on blood thinners or any cardiac medications, a quick conversation with your doctor before making purslane a daily habit is a good idea. It's food, not a drug, but omega-3s do have mild blood-thinning properties at higher intakes. Also, purslane contains moderate oxalic acid. For most people, this is entirely irrelevant. For those with a history of kidney stones, moderation and good hydration apply. Start with a small handful daily and increase gradually if you want. There is no dramatic protocol required. This is not a supplement. It's a vegetable, a very old one. One practical note on timing. If you're eating purslane raw, pair it with a small amount of fat, olive oil, avocado, a piece of cheese. ALA is a fat-soluble compound. It absorbs significantly better in the presence of dietary fat. The Greek salad preparation, purslane, olive oil, lemon, is not an accident. It is, without anyone having named it as such, an optimized delivery mechanism. Thousands of years of empirical observation arriving at exactly the right answer. You want to close with something that goes beyond nutrition. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, but I think there's a companion truth that he didn't articulate explicitly. We also heal more slowly when we've been taught to believe that healing belongs to institutions, to specialists, to branded interventions. There is something quietly radical about recognizing that a plant growing unsolicited in the cracks of your garden, a plant that civilization has spent decades and billions of dollars trying to eradicate, contains compounds that support your cardiovascular system, your neurons, your cellular antioxidant defense, your sleep quality, and your bones. Not because someone discovered it last year, because people have known this for 4,000 years, because Pliny the Elder wrote about it, because Greek herbalists used it, because it grows on every continent except Antarctica and has fed humans across every culture that ever encountered it. The forgetting is recent. The knowledge is ancient. Write in the comments, what plant, what weed, what forgotten food has your grandmother's garden given back to you? I read everyone. So if this kind of content stays with you, if it makes you look differently at what's growing underfoot, subscribing helps more of it find you. What I wanted to say with my limited vocabulary is this: autonomy over your health begins with attention, with knowing what grows around you, with refusing to outsource every decision about your body to a system that profits from your confusion. That's not anti-medicine, that's human. These are the things that don't get advertised. It's an honor to talk about them.